Today, I have an actual retired family court judge turned co parenting coach. And I was introduced to her by someone else that we interviewed recently named Dr. Ben Garber. And we found out that we have a number of things in common with, here she is, especially when it comes to how important it's very difficult to co parent. So let's see if we can get Peggy on there. Oh, that was very smooth.
All
Perfect.
right, here we are.
Yes. Yes. So thank you so much for coming on. I mean, I think people are always wondering, like, why did the judge do this? Why did the judge do that? And I know you're not practicing as a judge, as your honor anymore, right? Or do we call you your honor still?
Oh, no. I'm not a judge anymore, and I do have a license to practice law, but I don't practice law, so I won't be giving any legal advice. So I'll be trying really hard not to do that.
Yeah.
But I can give you some other tips and strategies. So,
Yes, and I know just from your background that you worked for years in Albany, New York, and that's where I went to college at SUNY
oh,
Albany.
really? Did you?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I don't think I told you that. But
yeah.
anyway, so one of the things we're going to talk about is what it's like from your perspective, especially when it's a battling couple in the midst of fighting for custody. And I think people always wonder, like, why did the judge do this, or what can I do to be more persuasive? So we're not going to be talking about anything legal, but more coaching sort of things, especially since your expertise is now as a co-parenting coach. So
Mhm.
before we even get into it, can you officially introduce yourself, Peggy, and tell us a little bit about your background and what led you from that to this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was a judge for 18 years. It was family law, divorces, and I did love that. But I just decided that I could do other things. And before that, by the way, I did represent people in family court. I represented caregivers as well as parents, and I also represented children. And I mean, to me, when I was a judge, it just didn't make sense to me, even though it was my job, that I was deciding where a child was going to spend her time. I was not the person who loved her. I might learn a lot about the child. I might learn a lot about the family. I might come to care about the family. But the truth is that the people who love a child should make decisions about the child. So I'm the default. If parents can't do that, I will do that. But I encourage parents to do it because they know the child and they love the child. And they're the people who really have the best interests of the child at heart. And even though that's the legal standard, and that's what I did, I would try to determine what was in the child's best interest. It's the parents, it's the people who love the child, who really get the kid and know what is best and know what to do. So I do encourage, I always did, and most judges will encourage parents to work things out themselves for that reason. And now I do help parents to try to just stay out of court altogether, or if they are in court, help them along, like just with what the process is going to be, what a judge is likely to do at the first appearance, and that sort of thing. So that is basically the idea. I try to get parents to make an agreement about parenting plans and anything else that needs to be sorted out. And there's a million ways of doing it. It really just depends on what works for the particular parents and children.
Yeah, so one of the things we have in common is how we met. So we both know Dr. Ben Garber, and he's got this idea that he calls advanced orientation, which is basically about educating people about what to expect as they move through the systems to reduce their level of fear. I think that for people in high conflict cases, there's so much emotion and they feel like they want to tell their story. And you had said that lawyers, and your background is also as an attorney, that lawyers are too busy to deal with how clients are feeling. That they're dealing with what's happening. So
Yeah.
how do you think people can what outlet should they have? Because they want to tell they want to tell the judge, they want a lawyer to understand what's the best place to get those difficult feelings out.
Well, they need to talk to their lawyer and make sure that their lawyer understands the facts, let's say. And they need to make sure it's really the attorney who's going to guide everything in the courtroom. It's the attorney who's going to present your case, of course, and who's also going to determine when and how you're going to make an agreement if that's going to happen. The parent is always in charge, but the attorney is going to have a lot to say about it, a lot of guidance based on their own experience. So the feeling, How do you get your feelings out? Probably not in court. No screaming. No, thank you. It's not going to help anybody. And it's not that a judge is going to get mad at you. Judges recognize that people in family court are not at their best. They're just
Hmm.
not. You know, the things that you're dealing with in family court are the most important things in your lives. So they're the most emotional things in your lives. So nobody expects people to come to court and be prim and proper and just nod and whatever. I mean, it happens, but there's usually a fire burning someplace anyway. So we know that. It's okay. We know that. I don't think judges really hold it against people if they blurt something out. It just doesn't. It's not kind of efficient is really what I want to say. You know, it's like make sure your lawyer knows everything. But the other thing is make sure you ask your lawyer what to expect. That's the
Hmm.
thing I think lawyers forget to do because they do it every day, all day, every day. And they forget that this person doesn't have any idea what's going to happen once they walk into the courtroom. That's not true of all lawyers or all the time. And it's not because they're doing anything wrong or failing to do something right. It's just, well, it sort of is that. But I mean, it's not because they're not competent. It's because they're trying to, make sure that the judge hears what the judge needs to hear. So they're
Hmm.
not really worried about you that much. They're worried about focusing on making the judge understand what you want them to. So you can just say to your attorney, what's going to happen when I go through those doors? What's the judge going to say? Who's there? Who's in the courtroom? Like, why is there why is there a police officer in the courtroom? It's usually a
Hmm.
uniformed person who's not a police officer, but
Right.
some kind of, law enforcement person who is simply there to make sure everything is okay, doesn't typically do anything. But, what happens? Who talks first? Do I get a chance to talk? When do I talk? And, what's going to happen at the end? What do I expect to come out of this? So just ask your lawyer those questions. They forget that people going to court for the first time don't know any of that. How could you?
Right.
So
And I feel like so many people that we work with say, I should know this already. And you can't. How would you know?
how would you know?
Right.
Watching Judge Judy, God forbid, God forbid, right? But I mean, that's a very dramatic courtroom series, but it's not real. It's not what
Mhm.
happens. And other courtroom dramas are, also dramas. They're fictionalized. And
Mm.
so if you watch a lot of TV, that doesn't mean you know anything about what's going to happen in your own case in family court. But
Yeah,
your lawyer,
thank you.
so ask your lawyer, you know?
I know. Or watching A Few Good Men where judgment rains down.
Right, exactly. Right.
Yeah. So one
Yeah.
of the things that you said you loved to do in the past was status conferences. Why did you enjoy status conferences?
Well, I just keep bringing people back. I don't like to bring people back to court unnecessarily, but a lot of times it helps to not make a final decision right away. Even, to just say, okay, let's try this. People aren't ready often to say, okay, let's do this schedule. It's permanent. I mean, sometimes people are, and it's all good and that's easy, that's fine. But sometimes you just have to try things out. And so you try this schedule. Well, that didn't work. Okay, so we're going to go back to court in a couple of weeks anyway. No big deal. We'll just go back and try to work out something else. So just to keep things moving along so that people don't have to fight all the time with the other parent and say this isn't working out, we need to change it. It's like, don't worry about it. We're going back to court in a couple of weeks and we'll redo it. We'll rehash it. We'll figure out something else. So to just keep it moving in that way with a third person, me, just there to kind
Mhm.
of be the person. So when things crop up, you keep track of them, and we go back to court. It's like, oh, okay, we need to address that. This didn't work, or you know, you were going to do that and you didn't do that, or whatever happens. So I did like to do that for a while for people who need it, but court is can be expensive if you're hiring your own attorney, and it can be time consuming, and some people don't get paid if they're not at work. They don't have paid time off.
Mhm.
Even if they do, they don't want to spend their vacation in a courtroom. So I mean, I'm very mindful of that. Nobody wants to be in court, but sometimes it's better to do that up front. Go to a bunch of court appearances so that you work something out that works long term.
Mhm. Yeah, I
hopefully
would think
be done.
having an authority who might say, this sounds like maybe you can get this done, or maybe, I don't know, to remind them of the progress being made, might help definitely move things along. So somebody just wrote a question, which we get all the time, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Do judges know immediately who the high conflict parent is?
Judges assume you're both high conflict because you're in family court. And so the likelihood is things are not working out for you. No, we don't know immediately that, yeah, that anybody is the higher conflict parent. But so no, I mean, and it depends. And for sure, as I said, demeanor, sure, a person can present as utterly perfect, calm, and everything else. That person can very well be the high conflict. You know, the
Right.
person who is always putting roadblocks up, the person who is always acting not like that outside of court. That, you know, we know that. And as I said, and the person who's blurting things out, that's not necessarily the person who's being a problem outside of court. Um, so no, I mean, we have to see what's been going on, what actually is the situation, what actually are the facts of,
Yeah.
you know, what's happening. So,
Yeah. I mean, how does anybody know who someone is immediately in general?
right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So another thing you talked about was compromise and forced resolution. What's the difference between those two things?
Well, forced resolution is, I mean, it's basically litigation. You go to a trial, a judge, a stranger, you know, basically, is what the judge is to you and your children. Whatever we might know or however we might care, that person's making a decision that you have to live with. I mean, you might be able to appeal the decision. Most likely, you're going to have to live with this. So this is, it's forced on you. I mean, we don't call it a forced resolution in court. We call it a decision. You know,
Mhm.
it's a trial and you get a decision. And here you are, and this is your life. Welcome to it. And you know, sometimes people are okay with it, and sometimes one person is, one person isn't. But it's what you have to live with. And we certainly do our best to make sure that number one, the child is taken care of. And number two, that that means that the parents have to, this has to work for the parents, of course, because it won't make any sense for the child or going forward. So we do our best to make a good schedule for you. But if you can compromise and make the schedule yourselves, it's always best because you know what's really important to you, right? One parent celebrates the solstice and the other one doesn't. Let the
Right.
parent who celebrates the solstice have the kid on the solstice, you know? If Sunday dinners with the grandparents are really important, to that parent can have Sundays, right? And then you give, so you make sure that the things that are really important to you, you get. And the things that are not so important to you, you can let slide in favor of making sure that basically it's a really good schedule for everybody.
Yeah, you actually answered the question before I asked. I was going to say, what are the benefits to making your parenting plan outside of court? And a number of the examples you mentioned are things that most judges would never even consider, right? Because how would you know that someone celebrates the solstice or has grandparent dinners, right? I mean, a lot
Right.
of parenting plans just have basic holidays, not those things that are specific to a family's traditions.
Right? Exactly. Exactly. So it's better. Again, you know your lives, you know your children, you know what's important to your family, and you can work it out. And by the way, you know, you can also put everything in writing if you stay out of court. I mean, there's a couple of ways of doing it. Sometimes you can put it in writing and ask a judge to sign it. You file a document and, you know, a petition or something, and a judge will make it a court order. But you don't, depending on your level of comfort, you know, going forward, you can just have the written schedule so that you can refer to it. So that's like, oh, right, that's right. This is your weekend, right? This is not mine. I forgot. Or no, look at this. Look at what we wrote down. This is my thing.
Uh-oh,
I know that was a
I
phone
think this
call.
froze.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you were saying refer to the schedule and see. Yeah, we always tell our clients have your order and your parenting plan like around you always, just
Yeah.
in case.
Yeah. Just so
Yeah.
you know. And
Yep.
people legitimately forget, you know, or think that they, you know, it says something it doesn't say. So it's nice to have something in writing that you can both look at and say, and maybe you look at it and say, oh, that I don't want to do that. Can we do something else? And sometimes, of course, you can. You just, work it out, change it, and that, that's great. Life comes, things come up. You can change your schedule, and
Yeah,
yeah, the
you
more
can,
peaceful
you can
that,
try.
the better it is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, another question that just came in. Do judges like when one of the parents tries to make a solution?
Yeah, we like it when both parents try to make a solution. So there should always be a proposal that you have thought about, and your attorney will present to the judge that says, this is our proposed parenting plan, and everybody should be doing that. And then you can negotiate from there.
Yeah. I always say when we work with our clients, it's like you want to come in as the proactive problem solver. You want to make the judge's
Absolutely.
job easier rather than judge, give us a parenting plan. Like you have your own thing at least started, or
Yeah,
you show whatever progress you've made so far, right? That
right.
because I imagine as a judge, you want people to, as we've been saying this whole time, do what you can outside of court because there's such limited time in the courtroom.
Right. Do what you can outside of court. See, then, say, here are the sticking points. This is what we can. We need somebody to decide this. We just can't decide how to do this or how to do that, or this part of the schedule, that part of the schedule. Then the judge can say, okay, what about this? How about we do this? How about we do that? And, it's like, okay, well, somebody else decided that we couldn't. That's fine. A little issue, that's not a huge deal, that doesn't require a trial, that you can, in other words, you say, okay, we're going to let you decide this particular issue, like, for example, how we're going to decide who has the child on Thanksgiving, for example, because it's typical. And okay, so the judge is going to say, mother has him on even years and father has him on odd years, or whatever, and or a vacation. Okay, you have to let each other know 30 days before, the end of school. There's a million ways of working things out, and judges have a million tricks up their sleeves to just say, okay, here's what we're going to do. So yeah, if you can't work out some little thing, fine, say, okay, you judge, you work it out, you tell us what to do, we'll do that. But if you can figure out a lot of your parenting plan, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, that saves so much time and money and energy and gets you a much better plan because that's basically your constitution that you're going to live by. All right,
That's right.
I have my questions, but we're getting other ones that are great. So I see another one that says, how do you handle a parent who just constantly wants it their way, or you're trying to come to a consensus, but the other parent adds other issues unrelated and then doesn't follow through? So let's say, person agrees to it and then they keep changing things and you're trying to work with them. I'm guessing this is at status conferences.
So the question is, what do you do? How do you handle it? I mean, so we say, okay, so it's not working. So let's do something else. What is it? Why isn't it working? What the parent who's not following it, what is it that you want to do? What's not working for you? Can we work that out instead of
Mm,
just saying, yeah, I'm not bringing the kid to you tonight. I'm just not doing that. We're not doing Wednesdays or whatever. You know, that's not okay. But to say Wednesdays aren't working for me. This is what's going on. I can't do it. That is okay. And then you say, okay, well, let's figure out something else.
right. So
So
to be like solution oriented though.
there is a huge I mean, it seems like problems are the same as solutions. They're really not, meaning like you have a problem, and so it's like, okay, so this, but you're so focused on the problem. But there is a way of kind of pivoting and saying, okay, the problem is Wednesday because he works late, he can't pick the kid up from school. That is not working. So what's the solution? Okay, that's the problem. He can't pick the kid up from school. Who can? Is there somebody who can? Can his mother? Can my sister? Whatever. I mean, what's the solution to this? This is not the end of the world, but it's a really big issue because it seems intractable. It's like, I can't get out of work. What do you want me to do? I can't. And I can't pay for daycare after school. So no, I can't, you're going to have to do it because I can't. Well, that doesn't have to be the solution because
Hmm.
one parent can't, the other person now must. There are
Right.
other things to do. Yes, right.
Yeah. All right. So now let's talk about communication because that's a lot of what you do. What I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is co-parenting communication? Because some people say, I'm not going to talk to that person again. We're done. We have a child, but I don't want to talk to them again.
Well, I mean, okay, but how is that? What does that look like? I
Mhm.
mean, you have a child who loves both of you. And if you're not going to talk to the other parent, that child knows that. And that child feels very uncomfortable because you're essentially saying, oh, look, you know, you can go see your father, but fine, if that's what you want, right? Or, oh, so how was it at your mother's? Great, right? As always, sure, right. I mean, whatever
Mhm.
you say to or don't say to your co-parent, your child is hearing it, either
Mhm.
hearing it in words or hearing it in feelings. And by the way, all those conversations you have with your relatives and friends about the other person, your child hears a lot of that. You know, they even hear your tone, even if they're upstairs and they can't hear exactly what you're saying about their mom. They hear your tone, they get it. And then they don't feel, and then they feel bad about loving their father or loving their mother because the other parent is so angry or hates them or whatever. So, no, communication is important because, by the way, you know, your child is probably going to have a relationship in the future. And if you set the example that you don't have to talk to somebody if you don't want to. Well, you don't really want your child to behave that way because that isn't good for him and it isn't good for you, right?
Yeah,
Silence really best.
right. And also, I think in situations like these, kids have to learn that this isn't just about, let's say, cutting off another person, but they have to function as a member of society. They're going to be encountering things that they don't like,
Of
people that they
course.
don't like. What are you modeling if you say
Right.
we just cut people out that we don't want to deal with?
And that does happen all the time. And it's a good thing to keep in mind. What are you modeling for your child? That's a big deal. I mean, you're a parent. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So co-parenting is one of those really important places where you're modeling behavior for your child. So,
yeah. All right,
yeah.
another question just came in on communication. What happens when the non-custodial parent invites communication, but then shows up to court with false conversations between the two? I'm wondering is like people have like they've altered communication if they're not using a parenting app. Did you see that where people would play around with emails or texts and change
Yeah, you
details?
could, it's easier to play around with text messages, but but you have to prove that that's not very, it's not very smart. It's really not going to work. I mean,
Mhm.
if the non-custodial parent comes in and says, I have text messages that prove such and such, well, the custodial parent has a phone too, and they're going to say, no, this is the text message thread. I didn't say that. So
Yeah,
let's come,
yeah,
not,
focus on
not
that.
properly. Right, right.
Okay. So, are there any things that people should be doing in communication to keep things as peaceful as possible? Because you had said communication is a way to live in peace.
Yes, it is. If you care about that, if you care about peace for yourself, I mean, of course, for your child, I'm sure you do care about that, but for yourself as well, because if you keep talking about the terrible things the other person did or said, that person becomes, the villain. And every villain has a victim. So you're the
Mhm.
victim, you have no power. So you're
Mhm.
constantly talking about that person, how horrible she is. And then it's like, yeah, okay, so that person's in the spotlight. So I would say, you know, don't make that person the star of your show. You should be the star of your show. But if all you do is complain about the other person, you know, who's the most important person in your life? That one. You don't want to live like that. So smooth out the communication, do what you can do. Sometimes you don't have to answer. Sometimes you can walk away. But a lot of times just, think about what if my kid were hearing this or reading this? How would they feel about what I'm saying, to his father? How would she feel if she heard me talking to her mother in this tone of voice? Like, it's hard to just, well, your mother's a real, it's like, well,
Mhm.
that's not a reason to talk to your, because that's not how we operate as human beings. We need to be respectful of each other. And you really want to demonstrate respectful, communication to your child, always.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people forget. They think just right now this is what matters, and then we're going to forget about it later. But your kids are watching you,
Your kids are
and
watching you. And, when you think about right now, it's important, but think about 6 months from now or 6 years from now, or think about even when your kid has a kid and you can't both, you and your co-parent, you're now a co-parent, but you're going to be grandparents, and your child, who you're talking about now, in the future has to tell his children, Grandma and Grandpa can't be in the same room at the same time. So we're going to celebrate your birthday on, this night for Grandma and this day for Grandpa. So you're not going to have two parties. One year Grandma's going to come to the big party, another year, do you really want that? Well, that is often what happens. Parents
Mhm.
can't, they engage in this behavior, get entrenched in it, and it doesn't change. And that's just the way things go. And the parents never figure out how to work things out and live in peace for the purpose of making a peaceful life for their child. And the child's life is never peaceful with the co-parents. So, you know, it is a good idea to think about the future and what do you want? Because it starts now, your communication, the way you communicate starts now, and you can change it.
Yeah.
I mean, so what if you start being nice? I know. It's like, I don't want to start being nice. I like that, I act this way. It makes him feel like, it's like, oh, well, that's okay. Just say, that's not working for me anymore. And you don't have to explain to the person, I've decided to be nice to you. Just do it. Um, It'll be shocking to everybody, and you'll see how well it works, and all the stuff that isn't important falls away, and then everybody feels better. You can both go to the baseball games at the same time, and you can both do whatever needs to be good, go to the PTA conferences, whatever, at the same time. And your kid knows, phew, mom and dad are not fighting over me, because they know they feel like it's their fault.
Yeah, they do. I
I
love the
mean,
line that you said about don't make them the star of your show. A lot of people do make their ex the star of their show. They don't want to, but with all that negative attention, that person is still so much in their lives.
yeah, right, absolutely.
Yeah. So someone had just asked, which kind of leads me to how people can find you. Does she have a hotline? I have a billion questions. How can people find you? Becky?
Yeah, I mean, my website is thecoparentcoach.com. So it's just thecoparentcoach.com. And you can email me there. It's just Peggy at thecoparentcoach.com.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd be happy to help people through these things. That's why I have this business, and why I took off my robe and I don't practice law. It's just I don't like representing people against other people, because it doesn't, I mean, sometimes it's necessary, and fortunately there are attorneys who are capable of doing that, but I just don't want to be one of them anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm so glad. And thank you so much, Peggy, for taking the time.
oh, what a pleasure, Lisa.
All right. I,
Yeah.
I might see you in Seattle. I'm not sure.
Okay, terrific.
Yes. Good. All right. Take care. Bye.